Welcome to the Gen EcoVillage Summit, Living Solutions for a Regenerative World. My name is Kay Ali Young. I'm one of the hosts and interviewers with the summit this year, and I'm here with Danielle Williams, who's at Dancing Rabbit EcoVillage. And thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing us to be part of this wonderful virtual summit. May the movement continue.
Excellent. Yeah, and I'd love for you to go ahead and give us a nice share. I know you have a presentation, and we'll do that, and then we'll have some questions at the end. So I'm happy to be here with you. I invite you to take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Thanks all for your attention during this presentation. Dancing Rabbit EcoVillage was founded in 1997, and we are based in the United States in the Midwest, in Missouri, which is not the most common place for an eco-village in our modern day and age, but there are some really special perks and assets to being here, and also unique challenges. Just like every eco-village and community, there's a list of pros and cons, and some of those are determined by the environment because that influences who moves here and how the mission unfolds and how we interact with the local and nearby populations. So again, my name is Danielle, and I have lived at Dancing Rabbit EcoVillage since 2012. I moved here after traveling and living in other intentional communities and eco-villages in 3 different countries, and have landed here and since become the steward of the nonprofit arm. So Dancing Rabbit has a land trust, a 501c2, and also a nonprofit, the 501c3. And so I direct the nonprofit arm, which is called the Center for Sustainable and Cooperative Culture at Dancing Rabbit EcoVillage. And we founded a nonprofit in large part to be able to share what we're doing with the world. We didn't want to hide away and cloister ourselves and just do our little radical mission by ourselves. We wanted to really be a bridge community that's bringing people from other walks of life in and cross-pollinating with them. So that's what we're up to, a little bit of what we're up to. And through these next slides, you'll get more and more of a feel for Dancing Rabbit, and we'll go from here. So Dancing Rabbit EcoVillage. The purpose. We were founded, like I said, in 1997 to find out how people can live rich, vibrant lives while leaving an ecological footprint that the planet can sustain. And we do that, like I said, in rural Missouri, Northwest, and we have 280 acres of land. Now our mission statement, as it's phrased, is to create a society the size of a small town or village, made up of individuals and communities of various sizes and social structures, which allows and encourages its members to live sustainably. And then we have the little asterisk, and beneath you can see our definition of sustainably. And our mission is also to encourage this sustainable society to grow, to have the size and recognition necessary to have an influence on the global community by example, education, and research. So this is what we come home to again and again at Dancing Rabbit. And, we're not just up to creating, like I said, a small little cloistered village. We're really are up to, the game that we're up to in the world is having an influence on the world around us in the direction of more earth stewardship, more sustainability, more regeneration on all levels, as you'll see. This is an aerial shot of the village section of our land. So we have 280 acres, and this section pictured here is maybe 60 or 70 acres or so. You can see a couple ponds. One of them is a swimming pond. One of them is more of an agricultural wildlife pond. And then you've got gardens and the roads. And when Dancing Rabbit was founded, there were only a few structures on that lower right-hand corner that existed. And so most of what you see has been developed through our intentional village development process, which has included a lot of planning in advance and a lot of subcommittees and people working intentionally to really listen to the land and to the human developments and figure out a symbiotic way to grow. And the people, so the people of Dancing Rabbit. Again, we were formed in 1997, so there have been many people who have come and gone over the years, and only a few of which have been local native Missourians. Many of our members and residents come from states outside of Missouri and even the coasts and even other countries. Currently, we've got about a population of 60, and that includes a number of kids. And people always ask, what do the kids do for schooling? And the answer is that the kids here do, there's a mix, guided by the parents, of whether the kids do homeschool or they go to the local public school, which is about 15 miles away, or they do a mix of sort of a cooperative in-house schooling. So sometimes the parents will teach different classes, and even other people in the community will teach different classes. So we've got people who have taught Spanish classes and woodworking classes, and it's really a fun thing to see the village come to life through the education of our kids, in that sort of like, oh, what can you learn just from the people in this village? And what does that say about who we are and how we take care of our children, and passing on those skills that we have to our little ones. So this is leading us into more about the place. The location of Dancing Rabbit Eco Village, as I mentioned, is right where that red star is. So it's kind of equidistant between Chicago, Kansas City, and St. Louis, which is nice that we're not too far from those places, but we are still a few hours from them. And so we have a very different feel than if we were located in an urban center, which is to say there's people sometimes don't want to move here. There's often a resistance to moving to the Midwest because of the conservative surrounding culture. And at the same time, when people come, they often really make a go and try to make it their home for life. So building a village, changing the world is one of our slogans. And again, if you zoomed in a little bit more, this is a more local map of where you would find Dancing Rabbit Eco Village. And again, another aerial shot of the village showing both the highlighted in red is the village area, and the bright green area will be the village area in the next few decades. And then the highlighted in blue area is agricultural land. And we currently have some folks, a sub-community called the Critters, who tend the land out there, and they've got a number of animal care operations and a beautiful big timber frame barn. So everything from Muscovy ducks and chickens to goats, and now cows. In the past few years, we've got cows out there, and some pigs as well. And this, again, is just the lower quadrant of Dancing Rabbit. We actually have more than what's pictured here in this picture. The rest of the land that you don't see pictured is allocated for prairie restoration. It's riparian land, it's woodland, and a lot of it is in a program called CRP, which means that it could be potential food production in an emergency, sort of like national emergency situation. It could be called into food productive land. But a lot of what we're doing in Dancing Rabbit is actually helping the land restore itself from the many years of not so kind or sensitive farming that happened on this land before we purchased it in 1997. So, and we're starting just slowly over time to see that soil health and that soil quality improve. And we've actually got some research efforts underway to see how the animal husbandry may be positively influencing and speeding up that restoration. This, again, we're zooming into the village side of things. So the purple shapes are all the buildings here. And you can see each building at Dancing Rabbit has its name. Houses have names here, just like people have names. And we've got some buildings that are just kitchens. So that's one unique thing about Dancing Rabbit that is not necessarily something that all other eco-villages or communities have in common, is that instead of having one giant common kitchen, and on the other hand, eating separately in our little personal private kitchens, we have small clusters of kitchens. So there will be small clusters of groups of people that eat in a cooperative kitchen. And you can see them on this slide with the fork and the knife. Those are cooperative kitchens. So for instance, I eat right now in a cooperative kitchen called Ironweed, and there's 7 of us here in Ironweed Kitchen. And so we actually each take a turn. So I cook one night a week for my 7 people that I eat with. And then the rest of the time I show up at 6:30 and a warm, delicious, organic, home prepared meal is ready for me. And that's one of my favorite things about cooperative living, is that I don't have to spend every day thinking about what I'm going to make for dinner. And I get to show up and have, I don't have to sacrifice quality in what I consume because of that. And I can just put all of my love and service into the meals I make for my co-op mates. And the values. So Dancing Rabbit, I like to think of us as having these 3 pillars of sustainability. And often people think of sustainability as the obvious, the physical sustainability. So the solar panels, the wind turbines, maybe even the agriculture or the organic gardening. However, there's a lot more that is required for physical sustainability to really work in community. And any of you who have lived in community for any length of time know that if you're just there for the physical sustainability, it can be very difficult. And especially if you're trying to live closely and share things, share infrastructure, or share physical items with each other and share joint ownership over things, we really do much better when the social sustainability and the inner sustainability pillars are tended. So I'll get more in the next few slides into what those things mean. But we see this as a really important 3-legged stool. And so if any of these legs are weak, then the whole health of the community is going to suffer. And you can often see that in attrition and turnover of like, okay, if we've got people leaving, there's something going on in terms of the social sustainability or the inner sustainability. So this is our personal definition of inner sustainability, and I'll just leave a moment for folks to read it on their own. And this can be a broad definition, and I'll explain it more in a minute, but it's inner sustainability are those things that we do to take care of ourselves and learn more deeply about ourselves and grow to become the people we want to be for ourselves and each other. And so that care and learning of self, of other, and how to strive towards even being a better person, all of that falls under the category of inner sustainability. And so we have folks who, doing acupuncture, pictured on the left, is one way of taking care of that inner state of sustainability and health. We've got people doing yoga, and then we've got folks in a meeting. And if you've ever been in a community meeting, you'll know that there can often come a point where you feel the distress rising in your system. Maybe somebody said something or a decision looks like it's not going to turn out the way you want. And it can be very tempting to speak from that distress and to speak from a place of judgment or blame or upset. And inner sustainability comes in when we go, okay, whoa, what's going on in my experience? And can I actually look more deeply instead of saying, hey, that's a terrible idea. Why would you do that? Can I look more deeply at myself and go, oh, I am really valuing cooperation and affordability, and I really want those values represented here somewhere. Can we talk a little more until we find a strategy that meets those? So that's the difference that you might see between a person who's, had more practice with the inner sustainability pillar and somebody who's had a little less. And those our personal inner sustainability health affects the people around us a lot. And so it really does impact the interpersonal sphere when we are doing well or not well. As anybody who's sick or struggled with chronic health issues can tell you, there's not much to bring to the table when you're not doing well yourself. And so we start with this pillar because, there's not much left we can bring to the group and to the mission and to the world around us unless we've got this being right here taken care of and tended in a good way, and we can look within and use that inner vision, that interoception, to really know what's going on so that we can communicate from that place instead of from a place where we're seeing ourselves as a victim and others as a villain around us, because that makes for a very difficult community experience. Quality of life falls under this category too. And so we did a poll some years back and just polled folks, do you think Dancing Rabbit is a good place to live? And of the folks who responded at the time, we had most of them saying it was extremely good or good. And then 12% of our residents or members were neutral. And that's just a little picture on the right of one of our children here, Althea, we call her the animal whisperer. She knows more about animals and plants than most of us adults. So interpersonal or social or sustainability, again, I'll just give a moment for folks to read this definition. So touching on this piece, we work on the inner sustainability first, and then we bring that to the group with the interpersonal sustainability. And so the interpersonal sustainability has to do with things like interconnection, how we share our time, and a whole lot of C words. So communication, conflict resolution, cooperation, connection, celebration, play, how we play together, and how we support each other in times of challenge. All of these things fall under the interpersonal category or the interpersonal pillar. And if we don't have these things, if we don't have a good framework or system for these things, then it can really be a struggle for ours or for any community. So we have at Dancing Rabbit, we've got a number of committees at Dancing Rabbit. And so we have a conflict resolution team. And right now we have an NVC class that people are participating in. We also have a care team, and you'll see all sorts of informal celebration. We just had a beautiful birthday party for our young rabbit member who just turned 18 in the village. And we had a beautiful coming of age celebration for Prairie, who turned 18 just a little while back. And so those are things that really, you get to see the social health of the community. And if you're somebody who's looking into community for your own personal possibilities of living, I would really recommend just tuning in to what's the interpersonal health? What is the social health? And if you're visiting a community, how do I know? How can I tell? There was a community I lived at before Dancing Rabbit where it wasn't a very impressive community until the collective community celebrations happened. And I thought, oh, this is where connection is really forged. And it's very true. We often see connection forged both in good times and in hard times in community, but also throughout the day-to-day, just sharing and having to navigate life, even though it's frustrating. You know, sharing a kitchen with other adults can be a difficult thing, like, who put the frying pan? Why would you put it there? It also creates a lot of consistent getting to know each other in surface area that forms really deep bonds to the point that we often call each other second family, especially when you're eating in a kitchen cooperative with each other. And that's part of the interpersonal health of our community, is having at Dancing Rabbit several subgroups, so sub-communities under the larger community of Dancing Rabbit Eco Village. And again, this is, you know, cooperative games can be an element of this piece. Dancing, we've got a beautiful dance hall thanks to one of the early members of Dancing Rabbit that we use for yoga and meditation and dance and workshops. And we've also got our own Eco Cafe that serves as a bar, and it serves pizza once a week. And the Milkweed Mercantile is the name of it. And it's at the front of Dancing Rabbit Eco Village. It's been a bed and breakfast and cafe for over 10 years now. And it's just a beautiful hub for people to come and connect, not just at Dancing Rabbit, but also in the local community. And so one of the gifts of the Milkweed Mercantile is that it really is a place where the outside world gets to come in and get a little taste of Dancing Rabbit. Now we do offer larger, longer programs. We've got an online women's retreat. We're doing online events now and again. And we also have in-person programs when we're not in a pandemic. But the Milkweed Mercantile is a more informal space where folks regionally can come and just get literally a taste for Dancing Rabbit and get to know these people, because for a very long time we were seen as the weirdos, these crazy hippie weirdos, and the locals didn't know quite what to do with us. But thanks to a lot of really personal, genuine desire to connect on the part of rabbits over the years, we have found our way into the hearts of people around us, and we have some great local connections and relationships now. And I will say, you know, spoiler alert, that one of the unintentional purposes of Dancing Rabbit that I think we're really unfolding and blossoming into is being a bridge between political differences. And basically in the US, it's such an important thing to not just see the world in red and blue, which we so easily can, especially in election years of like, ooh, that's a very red state, or like, ooh, that's a very blue state. How can we be people that underneath actually care about a lot of the same things? And how can we come from a place of respecting those similarities instead of just noticing the differences? So I think that Dancing Rabbit is breaking down a lot of the stereotypes, especially in the Midwest, between red and blue, and that is a huge purpose that we didn't necessarily intend, but that has come to pass. So on to physical sustainability, which is I think of it as the third and final sustainability, like I said, because it's really hard to run a community that's effectively sustainable without the interpersonal and inner pieces. So again, just giving a moment to read And this one is simple, and again, it's the one that most folks think about, and it's very much the easiest thing to see in a community. So when you come to a community, it's very easy to see, like, what are they doing? Do they have solar panels? Do they have wind power? Or do they have composting toilets? Are they rainwater gathering? You know, it's easy to see those things. It's a little harder to see those indicators in the interpersonal or interpersonal health, but nonetheless, all are important, and they all come together. This is a poster in our common house that says, "Daddy, what did you do in the climate war?" And this is really one of the guiding frameworks of Dancing Rabbit. And our founders really were motivated by this notion of, like, my goodness, what does it take to create a sustainable human society? What does it really take? And our founders, they actually were Berkeley graduates in the Bay Area and could have formed a community in California, but chose to start from the ground up, because when you start in a city or in an urban environment, you're working with a system that's already created, and you're having to retrofit. And anybody who's retrofitted a house knows that, gosh, sometimes it's easier to just start with your systems from the ground up. And so that's where we went at Dancing Rabbit, was like, what does it take to create a sustainable society from the ground up? And you'll see it, the physical sustainability areas of energy, waste recycling, composting, water, food, transportation, heating and cooling, building methods and materials. These are some of the indicators of physical sustainability. And it's a big part of life at Dancing Rabbit. It actually, you know, on top of our mission statement, or maybe underneath, depending on where you want to look at it from, we have 6 ecological covenants that are really the core of what you agree to when you move to Dancing Rabbit. And some of these are pretty basic, and many communities may share them or have similar things. There is one, at least, that is pretty unique, at least for the United States, to have this covenant. And I'll talk about that one more, and you'll probably be able to tell which one it is. So 1, Dancing Rabbit members will not use personal motorized vehicles or store them on Dancing Rabbit property. And so here we go right off the bat. This is the most radical one that is probably the biggest deterrent, or I would say filter, of like who makes it as a Dancing Rabbit member. You have to be able to live without your personal car at Dancing Rabbit. Now, mind you, you don't have to live without a car, because we have a collectively owned car cooperative. And we have vehicles that we've got hybrid and electric vehicles, and we've got a truck for big use, and we also have a tractor. And those are collectively owned by our internal entity, and you can sign them out. And in all of my years here, we've never had much in the way of scheduling conflicts. And so there's not so much a problem with volume, but what people run into when they move here is, ooh, my car represents my freedom and my autonomy and my ability to go where I want, when I want. What will I do without that? Now, my personal take, because I was one of those people who had just such a difficulty giving up my personal car when I moved here, was realizing that, oh, it's actually an addiction. Like, I've started to think of my car as a symbol and a substitute for freedom and autonomy and choice and self-care. And it's not. And I'm actually much more truly free when I remember that I don't need those external objects or those external indicators to rest my freedom upon. And it was also a big relaxing into trust. And I think on a big metaphorical level, this is the leap for people who move to Dancing Rabbit, and to all communities in different ways. Can we actually leap into letting go of what we hold so tightly and think of as so important to us? Can we relax around that and let it go, and let ourselves be held by the group, and trust that the group is going to care for the things that we're caring about as well? Not that we want to stop caring for our things, but that if I let go and don't hold so tightly to those addictions and those things, those stories about what I need in order to be happy in my life, could I relax into the gifts of community and truly know what it's like to be held in community? And there's a deep sense of belonging and a deep sense of purpose and togetherness that can come as a result. So I will say that it has been very worth it for me, but not easy. And again, most folks who live in community will say similar things of like, worth it? Yes. Easy? No. Community is the longest personal growth workshop you'll ever be a part of. So that's the first ecological covenant that we agree to live by. The second is not applying fossil fuels to uses of powering vehicles, space heating and cooling, refrigerating, or heating domestic water. That's really to curb and limit our fossil fuel use, because we see that as such a huge contributor to climate change. And we're really trying to live a lifestyle at Dancing Rabbit that is that can work on a carbon diet. Like, what is the carbon diet for a human being that is sustainable? And that's what we're exploring into at Dancing Rabbit. Number 3, gardening, landscaping, horticulture, silviculture, agriculture on Dancing Rabbit property must conform to organic standards. So no petrochemical biocides or maybe used or stored on Dancing Rabbit property. This is just like, again, ensuring that what we're putting into the land is taking care of the land and taking care of the people who eat from the land. Number 4, electricity produced at Dancing Rabbit shall be from sustainable sources. Any electricity imported from off-site shall be balanced by Dancing Rabbit exporting enough on-site sustainably generated electricity to offset the imported electricity. So we formed early on a microgrid at Dancing Rabbit, and for many years we were just our own internal microgrid. In 2012, we decided to connect to the larger grid, and we were feeding power. We've been feeding power to the local Lewis County Rural Electric. And, you know, it's an interesting thing now that renewable energy is becoming more common in the world around us. This is becoming less of the important piece that it used to be, but that's largely because of technology, and the rest of the culture is catching up with where Dancing Rabbit already was. Nonetheless, we still have our beautiful solar panels on many of our buildings, and we have an internal spreadsheet that we track, like our internal use and like how much are we using each year, and is that up or down from years before. Number 5, lumber used for construction shall be reused, reclaimed, locally harvested, or certified as sustainably harvested. So that's just making sure that the trees that we use here for construction are coming in a good way. Number 6, waste disposal systems at Dancing Rabbit shall reclaim organic and recyclable materials. So this, of course, this is, this is the reduce, reuse, recycle triangle. And number 1 is always to reduce. Number 2 is to recycle, and then, reduce, reuse, recycle. Number 1 is to reduce, 2 reuse, and 3 recycle. And we do that in our most creative way with our human waste, which you'll see in just a moment. So this is a quick look at the average American's carbon footprint, 20 tons, and that in large part goes to travel, to local transportation and travel to further trips, electricity, heating and cooking, food. Now, mind you, that's not like heating your food, that's like where your food comes from. So if you're eating meat or dairy or any animal products, the carbon footprint gets a lot bigger. And so a lot of folks who are carbon activists will live, vegan, low on the food chain sort of lifestyles. Here at Dancing Rabbit, we were very food conscious for many years, and you'll see later, but now that we're able to grow more of our own food and raise our own animals for food, we're seeing more diversification in the diets of folks who live at Dancing Rabbit. And here's just for comparison, the average rabbit's carbon footprint is 9 tons, so a little under half. And the largest part of it goes to travel. And like I said, many of us are not from Missouri. And so that travel is to see our family and friends who live in other parts of the world. Okay, so again, stacked up side by side, you can just kind of get a sense for how the average American versus the average rabbit's carbon footprint looks and what that goes towards. And you can also see specifically, we did some studies around vehicle fuel consumption per year. So on the left are 2 bars of Dancing Rabbit vehicle fuel consumption, and then the US average on the right, 466 gallons per capita. And so this was part of our eco audit that we did some years ago, just to say, like, we say that we're making a difference and living this low carbon lifestyle, but are we really? And how do we know until we measure it? And so we measured it at Dancing Rabbit, and turns out that we are at about 10% in a lot of the key areas of the average American's use. Now, this slide is number of vehicles per capita. And again, going back to that first covenant, you have to give up your personal vehicle after becoming a member at Dancing Rabbit. And the average American Yeah, the average is 0.8 cars per person, and that includes folks who don't even have a driver's license. This is just like number of vehicles divided by the number of people, and you get 0.8 per person. And at Dancing Rabbit, it was 0.6, and then it was 0.06, and then it was 0.08 when we bought our first electric vehicle in 2014. So again, this is what we're used to seeing out there, is everybody's got their personal vehicle, you know, their little piece of Americana that gets them the freedom and gets them to work and where they need to go, because they live in these different formatted communities. And at Dancing Rabbit, this is what it looks like, is all of these people sharing these cars and doing so with a relatively easy, tech-friendly reservation system. And so it's a very like constantly up-to-date Google Calendar that we use to sign out our cars. And we do a lot of errand sharing. So, hey, you're going to town, could you pick me up at such and such? Hey, you're going into town tomorrow, could you pick up my kid from school? And there's a lot of that sort of thing that really honestly comes back and improves our quality of life, because so many people talk about how much time they spend in a car going to and from work or to and from the store, or running your kid to and from play dates with other people. And you don't have to do nearly as much of that as Dancing Rabbit. All your kids' friends are in walking distance, and we've got people who go to the store and do the errands for other people. So the rest of those people are free to do other things with their life. And most of us work either on site or we have remote work. And there are a few folks who drive for work, but far less than you find in the average American location. So that in the end comes, even though it can feel like a big bar, a big hurdle for folks joining Dancing Rabbit, it's one of the things that ends up improving life most greatly, is being able to really relax into the freedom of time that comes when you don't have to be in a car so much. Typical home energy use. So this is another way in which we're doing carbon activism. So the typical home, most of that energy use goes to space heating and cooling. Well, space heating, and then water heating, because making heat uses a lot of energy. Air conditioning is next. And then your big appliances like refrigerator, computer, lighting, clothes dryer, oven, television, dishwasher. Those things take up the bulk of the energy use. And so at Dancing Rabbit, one of the things that we're keen to is how can we really make sure to build in a way that we're reducing the need for that intensive energy use. So electricity consumption at Dancing Rabbit is far less. It's not quite 10%. It's about 20% of the average norm. And the electricity consumption, again, is not applied to some of the other things that we saw in this previous pie graph. And so that's how we get that electricity consumption so low. We have our own microgrid, as I mentioned, and wind turbine facilities. And just to speak to that a little bit more, the electricity consumption also comes with a bit of a mindset thing. You know, it's a shift towards like, oh, is it a gray and rainy day? Maybe I'm not going to, use that extra electronic appliance. And it can really just be a mind shift to like, what's the weather? Maybe I won't use that thing. Which then on a day like today, when it's very sunny and very windy, we're all going like, plug in the such and such, plug in the electric cat, hair remover, and like, let's use some of that power because we have an abundance right now. And so it can be a fun thing to feel more tied to the earth and the cycles of the weather in the earth by getting to be responsive in those ways through our energy use. Solid waste and recycling. I mentioned that this is one of our covenants. And so one of the things we strive to do certainly is recycle, glass recycling, solid waste. We're far less than the US average in terms of the trash and recycling that we produce at Dancing Rabbit. And one of the things that we did was measure that. So we had, as part of our eco audit, we had some folks actually go around door to door and say, I will collect your trash so that I can weigh it. And so they weighed our trash. And so these numbers of how much trash and recycling we produce came from these individuals taking that trash and putting it on a scale and weighing it. And so we actually knew how much trash we were producing, which was humbling And in the end, very much aligned with our mission because we got to see like, oh yeah, this is way less than the average American produces in terms of waste. And a lot of that has to do with less consumerism and buying less things that come in packaging. And so when we make our own things ourselves, have more of a DIY, do-it-yourself culture, then we're not buying things that are constantly wrapped in 17 layers of plastic and tape. The other radical thing that we do, in addition to composting our food, most of our food goes to the animals on Dancing Rabbit Land. The pigs like to eat a lot of our scraps. We also compost our human waste. So composting toilets are one of those things that can like give people the heebie-jeebies, but in the end, it's one of the most radical things to do for the planet. So imagine all of that water, all of that potable drinking water that we just defecate in. And there are so many countries still struggling to get enough potable water for people to drink. And here in the United States, we're just defecating in it. And those materials, like there's organic reclaimable nutrients in that doesn't get to be reclaimed, that just goes into the sewer system and gets lost. And so we realize at Dancing Rabbit that there's positive benefits to reclaiming that form of waste. So we have composting toilets, a very simple form of composting toilet. They can range from the very simple to the very expensive and advanced. The most simple version is a bucket toilet. And so you can make a beautiful wooden box and put a 5-gallon bucket and some sawdust in there, and it becomes your beautiful toilet. You can go in and make your deposit, cover that deposit with some sawdust to help cover the odor and also help with the breakdown process. And when that bucket is full, you lift it out. You take it to the bins. We call them the Humi bins, Humanure for human manure. Take it to the bins, cover it with straw or sawdust again, and then let it break down. And so after dumping the Humanure, we let that break down for 2 years. And it's amazing how much it settles and how much at the end of those 2 years, you really can't tell the difference between that and a handful of dirt from somewhere else. And so this could be used for, for fertilizer or for any of the orchards at Dancing Rabbit. And we often use it to supplement the orchards. And, it's one of those easy, reclaimable natural cycles that can actually, when you're doing it, even though a lot of people get a little bit weirded out at first, it ends up becoming one of those things that feels even more normal and even more natural. Like, oh, right, this reminds me that I am part of the human cycles and the natural system on planet Earth. I am a being that takes in organic material from the world around me and that changes it, takes what I need from it, and then gives it back to the world around me. And there are other beings that can benefit from what I don't use in that cycle. So again, it just kind of like is bringing the circle back together as we do this reclamation of personal waste. Yes, off-grid composting toilets and the benefits of Humanure. Okay, moving on to water. So I just touched on water briefly. One of the things we do at Dancing Rabbit to reduce our water usage is not have lawns. And so many average Americans have to water their lawns. And there's even agreements around this sort of thing. We don't do that. We do water our gardens. Certainly we grow our food in our gardens. But the other thing that we don't have, like I just mentioned, is toilets. And we also utilize things like outdoor showers and systems, and we have rainwater hooked up on many of the houses. So you can see here the blue water barrels on either side of this house are catching rainwater that can then be, you could filter it and use it even for the purposes of drinking water if you have a sufficient filter, or you could use it for watering your garden or any number of other uses. And so thank you, wonderful natural ecosystem, for providing. And it just seems like smart sense to gather it ourselves, and then we're not using it from the county. And we also have a beautiful natural resource of the swimming pond. So most of the kids and many of the adults will be here throughout the summer to just like relax at the end of the day and connect in our beautiful swimming pond. And you might not think of Missouri as beautiful, but if you spend some time in this pond especially around sunrise or sunset. I was out there this morning at sunrise. It is a beautiful place to be. And that's one of the things that I wouldn't have access to if I lived in my own little nuclear family house. I probably wouldn't have my own pond. Most average citizens don't have their own pond in their backyard. But that's what becomes available when you join a community, is that you suddenly now have the power of collective purchasing power and collective asset grouping, so we can all share this beautiful pond in our backyard, and I don't have to drive to a park or pay a fee or even go to the local pool and have my membership there. I just walk out my back door anytime I want, and I can go to this collectively held pond. So yeah, it's a bit of a dream come true in that way. Food. So again, what we put into our body is an important part of the impact that we have on the world around us, because we are the demand for the farming chain, the farming and agricultural systems. And most of the rabbits here prioritize eating local, organic, homegrown and home preserved, and low on the food chain. And just some pictures of the greenhouse here, different pictures of folks canning food or milking the goats, or preserving food into whatever the harvest is. On that lower left side, you'll see like hundreds of jars of dill pickles that were canned and applesauce that were canned one year. And so again, this is just going to like, how can we, tend the world around us in a way that it tends us in return, and be good stewards of the land, knowing that we are part of the world. We are not separate from it. We are absolutely a part of the ecosystem around us. Natural gas. Now, this is kind of the last big section, and it gets into homes and heating. So natural gas is often used for heating. We use it sometimes as propane for cooking, but most of what we do utilizes more natural forms of energy. So on the left, you see a solar cooker. On the right, you see, again, we call it the solar death ray, but you can put a pot in there and it focuses the rays of the sun to the center point. And both of those things cut down on normal use of what you would need an oven or a stove range for. And getting into the homes and the buildings, the important things when you're thinking about building sustainably is making a house that is well insulated, at least in this climate. So in Missouri, these are the important things. Well insulated, using local materials, reclaimed materials, and keeping it small in size. And you'll see again that link to the fifth covenant of reusing construction, or lumber from construction being reused, reclaimed, or locally harvested, or sustainably harvested. So this is a beautiful picture of one of the timber frame buildings here at Dancing Rabbit that was built in 2012. And here's another one using straw bales for insulation, which has an excellent R value. Here's a picture of reclaiming. So this was a bus. I don't know if you can tell, but that you can, if you've ever ridden a school bus, you can tell from the back that that is a school bus indeed. It was repurposed and turned into a house for one of our local rabbits. And we've also got folks who do, you can see the plaster in the back here kind of coming into focus in these timber frame houses. Reciprocal roofs. So these were timbers. This is actually my house. The timbers were harvested nearby and turned into a beautiful reciprocal roof. And we have the cob plaster, earthen plaster, interior and outdoor, which makes for a beautiful look. It both looks sustainable, and it actually is sustainable in a lot of ways, because all the material on the outside of that building came from underneath the building itself. So clay, sand, and straw and some water turns what was underneath that building into its skin. This is another picture of my home, the Hermitage, with a beautiful earthen plaster coating on it. And this is the inside. So this is the inside of my home with that reciprocal roof and south-facing windows. So important to utilize that passive solar energy. And then it's a small space use. Now, like I said, I eat in a cooperative kitchen. So you'll notice there's not a kitchen in my house. It's basically a glorified bedroom. It's a bed and a little bit of a living room. And I've got, a stove there in the corner, and I've got all that I need just in that little space, because for other things, if I need to eat, I go to the cooperative kitchen. If I need an office, I go to the common house building, which the office I use in there, and then there's a piano in there too. You know, like there's a lot of things that I don't need because we have those resources in common. And so my house cost me very little to build because I don't need as much when I'm sharing resources with the people around me. So this can be a great way to actually reduce debt and not need as much personally when you put your lot in the hat with the whole and say, okay, we're going to get one big common house that serves these great needs for all of us, and then I'll have my, you know, my little retreat hermitage, my little retreat glorified bedroom to come to at night when I need some solo time. So again, the natural building pieces, there's got folks both with the timbers, putting up vents and stomping cob and plastering the walls. And this is a picture of Sky House, which is one of the multi-unit dwellings. Sky House is an awesome building. It's almost like a mini apartment building, you might say, at least as close as we get at Dancing Rabbit. That was founded in the early days as a cooperative income sharing sub-community of Dancing Rabbit. And you've got that nice solar cooker up front. And the nice thing about natural building is that you get to be creative with the artwork. So taking, you know, reclaimed materials such as broken glass and turning them into awesome murals and art pieces that make our buildings more unique, and it also makes it more fun to live here. Like, gosh, it's like walking around in a big playground for adults in a lot of ways, and getting to see the imagination of people really come through on the outside and the inside of their houses is a really different experience than living in your little cookie cutter house. And for me, it just feels so much more nourishing to be in a house where I knew the person who built it. And, you know, I helped in some ways build it myself. And the same thing with all the other houses around me. They have this personality of like, you can tell more of the story of where they come from. And they also just have this this unique essence. A lot of the buildings here just speak to this piece of like, yeah, what is the human imagination capable of? And even as we're thinking about how to stay warm in winter and how to stay cool in summer, how can we express that through the imagination of the human creature, which is vast? And I think a lot of modern architecture doesn't do justice to the full range of the imaginative power of humans, but we're giving it a good start at Dancing Rabbit. And if you want to explore whether you might be a good fit, we've got programs that I mentioned earlier. We do have programs that we're offering this year. We've got online programs, and we also have on-farm programs at Dancing Rabbit that are scheduled for later this year. And, you know, we'll see what happens with the pandemic. We hope to be hosting people here later in 2021. We have everything from weekend programs to 2-week visitor programs. And we have all sorts of ways for people to learn about us in the meantime. Webinars, online Ask a Rabbit events. There's an online women's retreat in a few months. And we have a very extensive website also. We just want folks to know about this because, like I said, our mission is to be a bridge community and to not just cloister ourselves away, but really be sharing this is what it's like to be endeavoring to be a sustainable human society. And we know we can do better as human beings. And this is what we at Dancing Rabbit are learning in that process of experimentation, knowing that the experiment is never complete. It's never over. It changes a little bit every time a new person joins. And we are a community in process of learning how to remember ourselves as part of the great cycles of the earth, the great cycles of all the living beings, and how to really do that in a way that honors where we came from, where we're going, where we are now, from a place of deep respect. Thank you for where the food comes from. Thank you for all that keeps us alive. Thank you for all the beings that helped us come to where we are today. How can our lives be a living expression of gratitude and honoring for that? And how can we in turn gift that forth to the next generation so that they similarly get to experience the incredible abundance of this gorgeous, beautiful planet and all the beings that we share it with. So that wraps us up with just some lovely photos of different pieces of life here at Dancing Rabbit. And thanks so much for taking the time. I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but like I said, thank you so much. And I'll just open it up now for any sort of questions.
Danielle, thank you so much. It was a really amazing presentation. Just love that. And there's really like so many different directions that I could go with questions. Being myself a co-founder of a community, and just anticipating the other listeners and what the kinds of questions are. So I'm excited that during the summit, we will also have some ways to engage for more of the questions, and we'll create a pathway for that to happen. So there's a way that we can explore that part. And for this now in the moment, I get to be the one to ask you a couple questions. And I really feel like, sensing into it, yeah, there's just a couple different directions that I could go. And definitely just a few things to comment on that I really appreciate. The sustainability pillars, like the ethos there, and that the essence of the need for the inner anchoring, and just something that I've really seen a lot of, and I think it's really powerful. It's a similar aspect of helping people just really understand the full picture and the complexity. So it's really beautiful example. And in terms of, there's things that come up to me around like regulations with compost toilets or regulations with building designs and different things like that. So as you're mentioning being a bridge community, I'm just curious about how you've navigated some of those challenges.
What a great question. So, and this is something for anybody who's thinking of founding a community to really consider. Where you're going to be located and the jurisdiction that is in can have such an influence on your physical systems that you create or try to retrofit. So Dancing Rabbit, again, even though the founders were from California, they chose to settle in Missouri. And one of the things they specifically were looking for is a county that does not have restrictive building codes. And so at Dancing Rabbit, all of our buildings are totally fine in the eyes of the law because we are in a county without restrictive building codes. Many communities don't have that blessing. So that, again, is one of the big benefits. There's as big of a cost on the other side in terms of our personal diversity of our members at Dancing Rabbit. We live in a very white area, very white surrounding region. And so that's a big trade-off for us. Is that trade-off worth it? In the end, it's really just a cost-benefit thing. It's something that we're working with and trying to learn from. But one of the benefits to being based in rural Missouri is that lack of restrictiveness in terms of the codes. And that also applies to sewage and the other things that we're working with. So this is a great place, if you're going to be based in the US, to find yourself in Scotland County, Missouri, for creating a new sustainable society. But other communities are experimenting in different ways with this. And Dancing Rabbit's little piece that we're offering to the Intentional Communities movement is how to do this from the ground up with these particular, with an almost fresh slate in terms of the local regulations and jurisdiction. But it is a very important thing if you are thinking of founding a community to really research what those laws are and what they might be if your community grows. A lot of communities start thinking like, oh, we'll just stay small and fly under the radar. And then you get to a certain point where that's really limiting your expression for purpose and expression for possibility for impact. And so there is a huge trade-off in to make those choices.
Oh, yeah, thank you. That's really, it's great to have that answer. And so much it ties in also to the ways that, the different other challenges that arise become the part of that permaculture solution to navigate, and the location, the aspects of location being so influential on the other aspects. And I'm sure climate, of course, is a consideration there with that. There's just so much in the presentation. It's just really amazing. I'm really inspired. And, I know that you talked a little bit about the nature of the arc of founders and the natural succession really that it is, with the duration and the longevity of a community, that there is that. And so maybe you could share a little bit about the membership, the ownership structure or membership structure and aspects of that.
Yeah, great question. So Dancing Rabbit, we knew that it was important to own the land in common because there can be so many subtle power dynamics. There's already going to be power dynamics that show up in a community. And, one person or a group of people having more power because they held the title of the land was not what Dancing Rabbit was up to. They really wanted it to be a cooperative, sustainable society. So the initial choice was to form a 501c3 nonprofit, the Center for Sustainable Cooperative Culture, and that is technically that's the parent organization for our 501c2 land trust. So that is how Dancing Rabbit is set up, and land trust is technically the holder of the land. And so when I built my house at Dancing Rabbit, I own my house, but I do not own the land that it's on. And so I can sell my house, but I can only sell my house to another Dancing Rabbit member. And the land that it's on is always held by the land trust. And I essentially rent a small footprint of land outside my building from the land trust. And so that's part of the like nuts and bolts of how we do it at Dancing Rabbit. And in addition to that land trust, we set up the covenants, as I mentioned. Everyone signs an agreement when they become a resident, and then again when they become a member. So at Dancing Rabbit, we have a filtering process, and it's really a journey of exploring mutual fit. So folks come first to a program. They may come to a weekend workshop or a visitor program. And then if they like it and think they want to live here, we ask them to come back either as a guest or apply for residency. And we go through a process of interviewing and getting to know folks. You can be a resident. We require folks to be a resident for 6 months before they apply for membership. And then becoming that membership is becoming that level of commitment where you say, yeah, I'm on board with the vision and values, and I want to be here. And doesn't have to be forever. It can be whatever that means to that individual. But once you become a member, the other agreement is that you contribute 2% of your income to the nonprofit, which is basically saying, it's our way of saying, like, we want people here to be on board with the ethos of sharing what we are doing with the world and being a cross-pollinator. And so that's our way of saying, like, hey, we're all going to collectively give and contribute to this nonprofit, because that's essentially the spokesperson for what we're doing at Dancing Rabbit. The nonprofit still tells the story of what the sustainable society is doing. So we've got the sustainable village, and the nonprofit is telling that story to the world. And in addition, when you become a member, you also get the privilege to own or buy a house and to also block in consensus meetings. And so there's different layers involved in that. And we are certainly open to new residents and new members. Even during COVID, we've had folks move here and apply for residency and become members. And we aim to be a big village, again, a community of communities in a big way, but it's a process. And, folks, it's a lot like the dating process of like, is this right? Am I right for you? Are you right for me? And can I live with these things that I have to give up when I move here? Because there certainly are big things that many people give up. And there's also a lot that you can gain. And that equation is up to each individual person to decide. But I will say that Dancing Rabbit, for many years, I wanted to form my own community. And that was my dream, was like, I was going to form my own beautiful community. And I had the name all picked out for it. And it was going to be in southeastern Utah, right along the Colorado River. And when I started living in communities and getting more involved, I was realizing how much work it takes to set up a community. I mean, we think of it as this romantic thing, but it's like, oh, the paperwork and the legal stuff, the bylaws. I have to write bylaws for this entity, articles of incorporation, and oh my gosh, and the tax status. I have to do the taxes every year for this thing. So it's no joke. It is a huge chunk of work, and not to deter people from that path. But if you want to get to the work of thriving and sharing from community, sometimes you can just find a close enough community that matches your values and jump into the work and ride on the back of what they have already created. So Dancing Rabbit is already very well known, has a huge mailing list, has a huge network. And so we are already, able to reach a little bit further when we share about what we're doing in the world. And I realized at a certain point, like, oh, I'm going to spend the prime years of my life doing setup work, and then finally have that reach when I'm much older and have less energy for it if I start my own community. And so I made the choice in the end to just say, like, actually, this is good enough. And everybody does that. And what I see people do is bring their little like packet of seeds, like every person is a packet of seeds. And it's like, okay, which seeds can I plant at this garden? Where is the soil right for these seeds? And, I found my little piece of the garden here at Dancing Rabbit and cast my seeds, and other rabbits are doing the same. And there's more space. There's more plots for more and more seeds here.
Beautiful. I really love the way that, the analogies that you're, weaving in there around the living systems and the seeds. And I really relate, and also from a background as a community founder and having had that moment of realization of how much where I was in the arc of that process and what that means for what it is and where it would be to be able to share the continuing process with, because it is a work in progress. And something to note there, and I think many would catch it, especially with experience, but is the intentional and complex design of what I'll sometimes call the organizational ecosystem, the legal entities and how they relate to each other, and the harmony that is created with that. And so that in itself could be its own module, I'm sure its own session, right, to talk about the relationships of those entities and how people as individuals join and participate in those. And because you named it as a really such a specific piece, is giving the step-by-step sensing of fittedness, right? And so it's such a perfect thing for people to be able to visit a community, an existing community, both as the exploration, like you described, where you could find, oh, wow, this is actually the community that I'm here to join, and learning from those other communities and for that different period of time. And there's a pattern of living systems compared to like a predict and control attitude towards life. If we could say, I'm going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and then I'm going to, and there's sort of these forecasted idea of what our life will be. And there's such a different quality of organic co-creation and spirit of cooperation and collaboration in community. It's such a journey. And, I just really appreciate this chance to get to know your journey a bit more and be part of hosting this opportunity for other folks to hear more. And and you answered one of my questions, which was your openness to new members.
Yes. Yeah. And thanks so much, Kayla. You were speaking to this a little bit, but that piece of like surrendering our individual mission for the collective mission. And at least that's one way to phrase what you're saying. But it's true that like I often get up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go work on this particular program and planning out our open house and planning out the natural building workshop. And then I get here and I do a few minutes of work on that in my office. And then I hear a kid crying in the courtyard. And like one of the kids that was playing and they scraped their knee or something. And it's like, oh man, like I sure didn't plan to like go out and help with this today. But it's like, right, but this is part of what I'm doing, is living in a cooperative experimental society. And so that requires some give and take. And it is a very tricky dance to know when to hold the boundary and when to flex. And, I don't claim to have any answers about that, but I do want to acknowledge that that is a living question in community for so many people. Is, I gain so much in being part of this, but it also takes sacrifice. And a lot of that sacrifice is my special somebody self and my agenda for that special somebody self. And what I'm here to accomplish, even in this day, gets rearranged often by the influences of the world around me. And it really, what I would say is that it really requires a development and a cultivation of trust in the larger ecosystem, the larger organism that we create in a community. So there is a group level of intelligence that I see come forth in our meetings and in our whole process and in all of the beings that live here. And there is a way in which we are subtly influencing each other all the time, and just trusting that, like, okay, I am tapped into this larger organism here. And that may mean that I have to surrender some of my little things that my little ego agenda wants to do. But in the end, I know that I will be held if I need something. And I know that I also get to live my life knowing that I helped bring the planet from this hyper individualistic culture a little bit back closer to the we. So again, moving the dial just a little bit from all about me to a little bit more about we. And I expect that will continue in the next several generations as we find that good balance point. But I know in every moment that I go, that's not what I wanted to do, was this thing for the community right now. Like, oh, right. But that's what I'm on the planet to do right now. That is what I'm here to do for future generations, is be a balancing point and a bridge back to that we.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I'll carry that with that. I carry and share that inquiry as well, that dance of the me and the we. And as you described it, in that sense of finding the boundaries, finding the pace and the rhythm and the tempo for self-care, and then the embodiment to that with others. And so there's just so much inspiration from what you've shared today. And with that, there will be, of course, much more to be shared within the summit. So everyone that's participating in that, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch and yeah, continuing and following along with the journey of Dancing Rabbits, such an inspiring model. And thank you so much for your time today, Danielle.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for doing this. And again, like, yes, may the beautiful movement of intentional communities just find itself rained upon and sunshined upon so much that the whole garden is just radiant with all of the expressions of human imagination through the vehicle of community.
Yes.
Thanks.